Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And welcome to another edition of Fictional Women Around the World. Spoilers, but nothing too major. I'm trying to avoid it. The season finale for season 2 of Poker Face just came out this very morning, and I'm still processing some things. So I'm trying not to spoil it majorly, but it did just happen. So if you want to avoid it completely, then I recommend the show. It's on Peacock, which is not a sponsor. But anyway, all right. Today we are talking about Charlie Cale from the television show Poker Face, who I would argue is neurodivergent, and I'm going to get into that more later. So Poker Face is a mystery comedy drama show that debuted on Peacock, again, not a sponsor, in 2023. It currently has 2 seasons. The second one just wrapped. It was created by Rian Johnson of Knives Out and The Last Jedi fame, and features just a plethora of guest stars. I'm always shocked who shows up on there. Guest writers and guest directors, including Natasha Lyonne, who plays the main character. She actually directed the finale of season 2. It is highly influenced by the show Columbo, which I have never seen.
Oh, you haven't?
No, have you seen it?
Yes, I grew up with Matlock, Columbo, not much of Murder, She Wrote. That might be a whole misogynistic thing. I don't know. Because my family, my grandfather specifically watched those, but my dad loved Columbo.
I looked it up because of this, because I was missing so many references. I was like, okay.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. They reference it a lot.
He was kind of like not the original, but he was definitely a big icon in that he was goofy and seemingly like you're unsuspecting of his genius. But he actually is a genius, and he's not your normal-looking detective.
Yes. Well, in the last episode, which was directed by Ty West and was pretty scary for what is the usual of this series, the character in there, who was an assassin, did a Columbo impression, and that's when I was like, who is this? I had to look it up, and so I watched a bunch of clips, and I was like, oh, okay, I see.
He was an icon.
Yeah.
In his time.
See the influence, yes. And okay, so the show's protagonist, Charlie Cale, frequently smokes or vapes as an homage to the Columbo character. And it's also how can you catch him and not a whodunit. So the way the show is structured is you already, as the viewer, know usually who did it. It's how is she going to figure it out?
Oh.
So here's a basic rundown of the premise. Charlie Cale, played by Natasha Lyonne, is a woman in her mid-30s who has this ability to detect when people are lying. A human lie detector is how she often describes herself. She's sort of the antithesis to Ana de Armas's character in Knives Out because she couldn't lie. The thing is, she can't tell why people are lying because people lie for all sorts of reasons. Because of her ability and just her overall personality, this means she gets sucked into so many shenanigans, especially murder shenanigans.
Obviously.
And just to mention, Natasha Lyonne had a cameo in Rian Johnson's Knives Out sequel, Glass Onion, when there was a bunch of detectives that Blanc's character was playing. What was that game that was so popular for a while?
I don't remember this. Mafia, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
Was it Mafia?
It wasn't Mafia, but it was the game where like there's a traitor in the group and they're trying to sabotage you. We were going to play it with our listeners.
Were we?
So long ago. She was one of when Blanc was playing Among Us, she was one of the people. It was during pandemic, so they were all kind of locked down. She was one of the people that was playing with him virtually. All right. So generally, this show is a murder of the week show, though there are some exceptions and definitely times they play on the audience's expectation of what that is for a surprise factor. But generally, the episodes are structured like this. We see the story of someone we don't know play out, and in one way or another, it leads to a murder and usually an attempt to cover it up. Then, the second half of the show reveals how Charlie was off to the side the whole time, sometimes just out of frame, and typically friends with the person who got murdered or has some kind of stake with the person who got murdered. So she goes on to try to solve the murder. Notably, this does not usually involve cops, but typically at the end, there is some sort of revolution that isn't death. But sometimes it is death. Sometimes it is. It's also very much a road trip story since she's traveling across the U.S., and she's always looking for odd jobs to make money, which in part explains how she runs into just all of these situations. One of my favorite examples of recontextualizing Charlie's involvement in the story when you get the second half is from season 1, an episode called The Stall. This one is about like a really renowned, dedicated barbecue pitmaster who suddenly decided to retire, saying he just can't do it anymore. He can't slaughter animals anymore. And his brother and his brother's wife are really against this because they can't afford to buy him out. And it's a really profitable business. So they come up with this elaborate plan to murder him, which they do. Then when we get back to Charlie's side of it, it turns out that she had basically had to work there because a dog she didn't even want to adopt ruined their restaurant, like ate a bunch of meats. So she was working to pay off her debt. And she befriends the pitmaster, and she gave him, I don't know why, I can't remember exactly why, but she gave him all these movies about animals as the protagonist, like Babe and Aktia. And he was so moved by them. That's why he decided to quit.
So she's the reason.
Exactly.
That he got murdered, essentially.
Yeah. But it was so funny because, you're just watching it and it's a fun recontextualizing of like,
okay, so don't be
yes.
friends with her.
Unfortunately,
the other part.
she has a bad track record with that, which we'll talk about more in a second. Another thing that they love to play with is the they have the classic, here's how I figured it out monologue. A lot of times that does not go down as expected in this show. Another fun example of how they mess with the formula, and actually I watched this episode at your house when I was dog sitting Peaches, and another fun example of how they mess with this formula is in the season 2 episode Sloppy Joseph, which is one of my favorites. A young girl murders a gerbil. And a young boy's self-esteem. So not always murder. Sometimes suicide. But generally it's murder. Okay. But let us...
What is this show?
I love that episode. Okay. But let's talk about this character. When we first meet Charlie Cale, she is working at Frost Casino in Las Vegas, which has just been handed down to the boss's son, Sterling Frost Jr. Basically, she had been using her ability to fleece people in poker and make money, but she got caught and is now sort of trapped in this job because Frost Sr., there had been rumors about her, gamblers talk, as they say, and he had studied her for hours from this crow's nest that he had in his casino, and he figured out what she could do and told her, you have to, otherwise people are going to punish you. You have to work with me and you have to help me detect these lies. And he also told everybody that she's dirty and so she couldn't gamble anymore. If word gets out that you're dirty, I guess in the gambling world, that's it. So she works with her best friend, Natalie, who makes a pointed remark about why Charlie complains about things but doesn't do anything about them. Natalie discovers child pornography on the laptop of one of their top gamblers, which she reports to Frost Jr. He promises to investigate it, but instead has his right-hand man, Cliff, murder her and frame her abusive husband. However, Charlie has her whole bullshit thing and knows that the official story isn't true. She eventually finds a way to record the failures of Frost Jr. and pass them on to his father, because she says basically like there are other ways to punish people than the police. Junior kills himself, and Charlie is blamed for it and forced to flee in her 69 Barracuda that she pretty much lives out of her car. When it comes to why I would characterize her ability as neurodivergent, it seems that she has a compulsion to call bullshit. Like sometimes she just says it because that's what she says, bullshit. And she can't stop herself, and it gets her into trouble. And there are multiple instances in the show when she maligns how much this ability has and continues to impact her life. Whether it's family members cutting her out, her constantly moving to try to find places with no bullshit, or so much bullshit that it's white noise, which she did try, developing an eye twitch or headaches because of how much people lie. It completely impacts her life. And this is interesting because people like to try to dissect how her ability works. So it's not her reading tells. It is a physical thing she experiences where she just knows something is off, and it seems she can tell how big the lie is. All right, so this is where we get to the murder of the week plot, with the overarching plot that Charlie has to continually move and stay off the grid to avoid Cliff, who has been dispatched to bring her back to Sterling Sr. She solves all kinds of murders in all kinds of settings. There's a metal band, there's racetracks, there's a special effects warehouse. But eventually, Cliff recaptures her after she's been nearly murdered and hospitalized. And I have to say, that episode was a good twist on the whole thing, too. Turns out Sterling Sr. knew that she hadn't murdered his son. Also, he's a mafia boss, which we all suspected, and wants to offer Charlie a legit job. However, he is murdered, and Charlie is framed for his death. So, she flees once again while in contact with her FBI friend, Luca Clark, and she retreats to her sister's house, who's played by Clea Duvall. And the two of them have been estranged because Charlie was blamed in their family for causing their parents to divorce because she knew they were lying about stuff. They sort of make up. And Charlie gets the keys to the family boat, only to learn that the boat doesn't function. So desperate, she calls Cliff for help, but then discovers he was the one who killed Frost Sr. and attacks him before jumping in the water and making her escape. She then gets a call from the consortium of mafias in the eastern United States, the Five Families, as they're called, and particularly Beatrix Hasp, played by Ray Perlman. They're mad because she caused all this chaos and a power vacuum, but Hasp offers her protection if she comes to work for her. Charlie declines, Beatrix puts a hit out on her, and Charlie is on the road, fleeing once again. Then, this is when you get into season 2. That was all season 1. And I'm only going to quickly summarize season 2 because it did just happen. But okay, more murders solved across the U.S., more dodging of hitmen, until Charlie and Beatrix come to a truce, and Beatrix agrees to testify in exchange for witness protection. Charlie then finds her way to an apartment in New York with the help of Good Buddy, a person she communicates with on the radio. More murders occur, and then assassins, and then she meets a person who can lie to her. Ooh, she meets her Moriarty. And that's what I will leave it at. All right, so I really enjoy it. I love a good puzzle. Samantha knows I was nerding out about this. trying to guess all the things that were going to happen. I really enjoy it. But I also really enjoy the character. And actually, she reminds me of you, Samantha.
Me?
Yes, because she is somebody who's really curious and doesn't like back away from a tough conversation. Like she's somebody who legitimately is like, no, tell me about this. I want to know. I'm not just, it's not a superficial conversation with her.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think of traits that this character displays, curiosity and cleverness, she's very, very curious. She cannot let things go. But she's also really smart. She picks up on things so quickly. And I read an article about how these kinds of shows work and how like a couple of seconds matter because as the audience, we're figuring it out as we're watching it. So they have to be really tight with the editing and they're really good with that. But it feels like she's always kind of a little, even if you know who it is, she's kind of ahead.
Okay.
She's very kind-hearted. In this most recent episode, her Moriarty called her compulsive do-gooder. But she is somebody who sees people for who they are and wants to help them legitimately. And that's nice.
Yeah.
She is in a bad place now. I gotta tell you, that season finale was like, oof, 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 oof. But she still was helping somebody at the end. And also, perhaps obviously, honesty. She is honest and she values honesty. There are ways people can get around her bullsh detector. Like if you always kind of, I don't know, answer a question with a question or certain ways you can phrase things. That is not what was going on with the Moriarty, though. But there are ways people can get around it. And now I'm like, now that she's met this person, I can imagine how terrifying that would be because you're so confident in this ability and then you had someone come in and now, can you trust it? She's also pretty much a loner. She always makes friends. She's very friendly, but she moves on. Like it's always like I made this friend and then I move on. And she's a loner because of this ability. It is sad too. Like I texted a friend after I watched the finale today and I was like, I didn't expect it. This is what I thought was going to happen. And I didn't expect it to be this sad. But she thought she'd found somebody who always told the truth. And she was so relieved. Oh, geez. But she values that so much. She was so relieved that somebody was just being honest with her. Oh, gosh. Anyway, she has spoken about how she doesn't seek out danger or jeopardy, but she finds it kind of exhilarating. And one of the things that there's a lot of suspension of disbelief, perhaps obviously with the show. But one of the things that I'm always like, why are you confronting these people alone when you know they killed somebody? She does it all the time, though. She confronts them alone. And I'm like, you're a small lady and nobody knows where or who you are.
You make a lot of people mad. Why would you do this?
Yes. I will say a lot of the murders are kind of like crimes of passion.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's not like they're serial killers until recently. But still, I'm always like, my goodness. Also, the phone thing, they haven't really figured that out. Or she hasn't figured it out. I don't know. But I'm always like, where is your phone? But I do love the show. But those are my things that I sometimes I'm like, what? So there actually has been a lot of stuff written about Poker Face and feminism. There are a lot of plot lines that condemn particular types of misogyny. I have to say the show really comes for certain types of misogynist dude bros a lot. And when you look at who the victims are, sometimes it'll hit you over the head with like, yeah, this dude is absolutely a misogynist. So, I mean, even at the start, Natalie with her abusive husband, as the scapegoat. There was this whole thing where he sent dick pics to like everybody, or he showed up on their cloud or something. And that was a part of the plot. And that was how they framed him. In a recent episode, there was this whole thing with breast milk and guys working out and drinking the breast milk. And it was very like, these dudes are babies.
Mm-hmm.
These dudes are babies.
Mm-hmm.
They're crying when they're not getting the muscles they want. Tech bros galore. Wow. And then kind of just the whole idea. One of the recent episodes is a really good example of this, but like they were filming a TV episode and it was very misogynistic. And then the man who killed his wife used what was happening in the TV episode to murder his wife because they were filming it in his funeral home. He owned a funeral home and he killed her because she wanted to leave, divorce him. And then he burned her body and pressed her into a vinyl of a song she hated. And it was very much like, this is a guy who just can't even handle his wife leaving.
Yeah.
There's a lot of examples of that. I would go into it. And actually, I would like to come back and talk about it, but I already knew this one was going to be long. So that's for a future episode. But for now, listeners, if you have any suggestions for this segment or any thoughts about this at all, please let me know, because I still have questions. I have one main question remaining after the season finale. You can email us at hello@stuffmonevertoldyou.com. You can find us on Blue Sky at Monster Podcast or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff One Never Told You. We're also on YouTube, and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff One Never Told You is a production by iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.